Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1 and I'm here bringing you a new discussion video. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be looking at the level 0 games, specifically the runner versus an overstatted character. The two main beaters used to plus at level 0 are runners or overstatted characters. A runner obviously just tries to avoid battle to live an extra turn, while the overstatted beater tries to make it so cost inefficient to kill the character, forcing your opponent to avoid fighting the character or siding it for damage, letting the character live one more turn. I believe the Western community generally favors runners when picking between the two. I'm here to argue that an overstatted character is as good, if not possibly better, compared to a runner. First, we need to talk about some common goals everyone is looking for at level 0. Three of their major goals at 0 are building hand size, removing your opponent's characters from the field, and avoiding as much potential damage as possible. These goals are generally what most decks and players want to do. A runner then obviously has some great advantages. We can avoid battles with characters stronger than the runner, which translates to a +1 and can provide you with a small tempo and resource advantage the following turn. By doing this though, we have now given up on negating as much potential damage as possible to secure this plus and tempo advantage. If we run away from the battle and leave an open slot for our opponent to attack into, we have now let our opponent potentially catch up in the tempo with us. This also means they played a character that our runner cannot fight head to head, so we now have to play another character next turn to safely remove their character. Committing another character to the board isn't a big issue, but it does force you to commit more resources to the board, which can either force the game to move to level 1 a turn faster than needed. Now let's look at a 4K level 0 beater. These beaters are usually the most common among recent sets, and they usually come with a demerit that almost never impacts the game. By using an overstatted character versus a runner, we have now encouraged our opponent to do one of 5 things. Avoid fighting the character, use a level 0 suicider to remove the character, use their own beater to trade with the character, or side them for damage, or commit more resources to the board to remove your character. Let's look at each of these outcomes. If your opponent just avoids the battle with the character, you have now +1 for the turn, making it so you do not have to commit more to the board if you do not want to. The damage output by your opponent is the same as if you had a runner and ran away from the fight. Their next option is to use a level 0 suicider. They have now removed your character from the field, but by doing so, they have now opened up another slot on the board for you to direct attack, giving you a very small potential tempo advantage at level 0. If your opponent uses a similar statted character to trade with your character, it's the same as them using a level 0 suicider, which again in turn gives you potential tempo advantage. Next, if your opponent side attacks for 1 damage, you have now negated 1 potential damage by not having an open slot on the field. Finally, if your opponent overcommits resources to remove 1 character from the board, this can translate into diminishing hand size all game for your opponent and forces them into a position to either sack with a brainstorm to build hand size back, or clock more turns than they actually need to if they didn't overcommit their resources early on. Having your opponent clock more turns than yourself is like free damage and a tempo swing into your favor. At this point, you might be asking, why does any of this matter in the end? Well, I'm in the school of thought that the longer a game goes on, the higher chance the better player has to outplay their opponent, which in turn means you should be winning more often than not. Any opportunity to gain a tempo advantage while negating potential damage from your opponent can edge out your opponent from sacking the win, since they now have to push more damage than you do over multiple turns, and by the time this is apparent to them, you have already stabilized on your second deck with decent compression. With that being said, I'm going to end the discussion here. I'd love to hear from everyone in the comment section about their thoughts and arguments on which is better or if neither are. If you haven't already, subscribe, comment, and like the video if you'd like to see more content like this. See you guys in the next video. Later.